Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Wellness Wednesdays with Widad. And today's topic is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk about body psychology, body-oriented therapy, and what all that is. And with me today, I have a very special guest, Liudmyla. And we're going to talk about exactly what I just mentioned, what is body psychology. I just thought it would be interesting to find out what are other therapies out there when it comes to mental wellness, mental well-being, and around health and well-being as well. Welcome, Liudmyla. Thank you for sharing your time with me today to talk about what it is that you do.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're most welcome. I'm so excited to get into this conversation. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read off your bio so everyone knows who you are. But of course, you're going to tell us exactly in your own words exactly who you are. So Liudmyla Shulga is a body-oriented psychologist and also a Gestalt therapist, a trauma therapist, and a health program trainer. And in her practice, she helps clients navigate life transitions, with authenticity, grace, and vitality. And she has worked for over 17 years in the area of public health, conducting research and developing healthcare programs. In the last 13 years, she's been focusing on individual and group therapy. And for the past 7 years, she devotes her time to one-on-one work and group work. Her interest is in physical and mental health, which is deeply rooted in her own personal journey to obtaining well-being. So, and her main message to everyone here today is, you are not alone. I am with you. So, Liudmyla, welcome. Welcome to my chat conversation today. Tell me a bit about how and why you became a Gestalt therapist and a body-oriented psychologist.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and that's where exactly my journey started. That the whole story is really deeply rooted in my personal life story. I did lots of degrees in my life, and my route was not very straightforward to psychology. I wanted to be a psychologist, but at that time, that field wasn't very developed in Ukraine. And I think it's worth mentioning that I am from Ukraine and I have Ukrainian background. So all my studies were happening there. So then, okay, if I can't be a psychologist, then I decided to become a translator, because out of all disciplines, this is the one that I didn't hate. So it wasn't a love choice, it was I don't hate you choice. And it was fun for a while. But then I got into projects related to public health, and I did my volunteering service in Germany, and that turned my world upside down. I was like, wow, so many exciting things exist, and this is what I started doing. And then I returned to Ukraine, and that field of public health just started developing. So I was right at the beginning there of that wave, and I was working in HIV and AIDS field. So I did everything. It's like volunteering, educating volunteers, me, like training for social work, it's me. And then there was a whole number of organizations doing that. And then I ended up working for the national organization. And that was fun for a number of years. And the last project I did there was a project on HIV prevention in couples who are using drugs. So this is how I started working with relationship. And a couple of years before that, I had my own crisis in relationship. It was confusing. I couldn't understand what must I do, because somehow logic and feelings were all mixed up and it was difficult to understand. So I thought I need some help, and I was looking for someone who could help me. I didn't know much about psychology. I knew a lot about social work and social psychology, but I didn't know much about working one-on-one and what therapy can give me. And I was looking for therapists. The first attempt of finding a person wasn't super successful, but it gave me some understanding of what exactly I'm looking for. And then I found my therapist, and then I was in therapy, working one-on-one with her, and then I did group therapy. And after a year or two, I thought, I'm done, I'm healed, everything is fine. And now I'm joking, I was ready to write a book, like 7 steps to happiness or something like that. But then I was hit with another crisis, with a health crisis. And I really believe that was the consequences of the level of stress I survived before that. So my body was so depleted that no matter what I did, I was always tired. And a couple of doctors' conversations were quite unpleasant, and their predictions were quite gray and gloomy. And I didn't like them. And I'm sorry, this is my doggy making noise. I didn't like them, and I thought I should fight. So I continued with therapy, and I was looking for solutions for me. And then I thought, okay, I'm doing it for several years now. Maybe I should learn it and actually make it my own new profession. And that's how it all started. So I started looking for solutions for me, and then it became a profession. And as you see, I'm sitting, I'm walking, I'm having a fairly good life. So I would assume it worked.
Yes.
And yeah, and of course, I started with Gestalt therapy. I tried other modalities, they didn't work for me, but Gestalt therapy worked for me, and we can talk about what it is later. And then while I was doing Gestalt, this is where I was introduced to the concept of body plus mind as one. And there is no such thing as a split, because we are a whole organism.
Right.
The early books.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. That was actually gonna be my next question, because people are probably wondering, like, especially in South Africa, I don't think a lot of people have heard of Gestalt therapy, or even body psychology, what we all know, the conventional therapies. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what Gestalt therapy is.
Yeah, when I came to South Africa, I was looking for the Institute of Gestalt Therapy, and I couldn't believe I wasn't finding one, because the concept, the theory was written by Frederick Perls while he lived in South Africa. And he left country because of apartheid, because he wasn't supporting the idea. And when things started happening, he said, okay, I can't stay here. So he left. So what is Gestalt therapy? Gestalt is a German word, means whole. It's a whole picture. We can think of it as a puzzle, the game for kids, and we put all those pieces together, and when the puzzle is complete, we say that Gestalt is closed. In our life, we have millions of gestalts. It's not something like 1 or 2 or 3 things. It's not a problem. It's something that we want, and we understand what we want. We know how to get what we want. We know how to satisfy our need, and then we're happy. So gestalts are always opening and closing. For instance, I'm sitting and I start feeling discomfort, and I don't know what is happening. And then I realized, oh, I'm thirsty. So now what am I doing? I'm trying to find me water. I go to the kitchen, I bring me a glass of water, I drink it, and now I'm satisfied. So my need is satisfied, my Gestalt is closed, and I know that it's closed because I don't think about it anymore. It already happened. What happens with us is sometimes on this cycle of understanding what we want and satisfying the needs, some breaks happen. Like I work so much that I don't even have time to think that I'm thirsty. And lots of people forget to drink water exactly because of that. Or, yes, I brought me water, but then someone called, I put it down, and I forgot about it again. Or at some point, I start feeling that I'm super hungry, and I start eating. And I eat, and I still feel the discomfort, and I don't know why, and then I get irritated. And all of that is because I forgot that I actually was thirsty in the first place, because our body goes into that confusion. And then I can continue doing lots of things, and I still don't feel pleasure or satisfaction from what I have. And examples can be related not only to water, but to, you probably also have people in sessions who tell you, but I do so many things and it doesn't work. And then you ask, but what exactly are the steps that you're doing? Maybe they're wrong steps. Maybe you think you're eating healthy. Maybe you think you're supporting your mental health, but in reality, you're doing something else. So Gestalt therapy is about that. And also Gestalt therapy focuses on here and now. All this, if you will look at all modalities, from therapeutic to psychotherapeutic, everyone is using this concept of here and now, but it was described fairly well for the first time by Friedrich Perls. That it doesn't really matter what happened 10 years ago or a week ago. What matters is what is happening now with you, with me, and between us. Because we tend to narrow our vision and not to notice what else is happening. People can see me, and while I speak, they can, for example, forget about you, or not pay attention to my chair or paintings, or be not aware of what's on the floor, right? But the whole picture is always bigger. So we always try to stand in the present moment and to see what is actually happening with you in your life, what sensation it causes, and what emotions it brings, and what feelings you have about that. So I think that's in short.
That kind of, that's very, very interesting. I think we probably do a lot of that in our conventional training, but we just don't put it together like that. As a health coach, I help people with their healthy eating and living a healthy lifestyle. But sometimes you're right, the missing puzzle pieces are not all in place, and trying to figure that out is so crucial. Is that also similar to what body psychology is all about when you're looking at mental health and working with the body? Is that kind of something similar then?
So body psychology is interesting. So first, Gestalt describes a human being as organism. He doesn't even say the word like human being, it's organism. And that's because he wanted to show the complexity of what we are. Because when he was writing his theory, we were still in this machine idea dominant world. That the person is a machine, something is breaking, we change the part, we healed. Now he says that doesn't work that way. We have psyche and we have body, and one does not exist without the other. Body without psyche is dead body, and psyche without body, no one saw that thing. So he was saying that what we are doing through the body. We live in the body, we interact with the world through the body, we get pleasure through the body. We experience negative emotions also through the body. And that's how the concept was introduced. And then there were other people who contributed to development of body therapy. And the first one was Wilhelm Reich. He is the father of body psychology, like for real. It doesn't matter which modality people practice. It's like Bible, they start there. Because he expanded, because Pearls was already using his knowledge. So what Reich noticed is he observed a certain energy. Like, okay, whatever, he was trained as a doctor, and he noted that different people have different levels of energy. This is what we know intuitively, right? Someone is highly energetic person, then you have someone who's constantly depleted, then you have more moderate people. Then he noticed that while people speak, the energy changes. So his question was, what's going on? How does the thing work? Then he was doing more research, and he noticed that everything is energy. Like if you actually look through devices, whatever devices he used, you can see that everything has energy. Well, now it sounds almost like crazy because everyone knows about it. But at that time, it was a revolutionary idea. And it wasn't that long ago because he died in 1957. So we're talking about a couple of decades from here. And then he said, okay, if this thing exists, then probably energy can be accumulated. Then how can we do it? And he was doing experiments with that. How can we accumulate energy? And once we accumulate it, how can we use it? And then he was doing research with cancer patients. And he was also giving treatment to patients in terminal stage for free. And he was doing lots of progress in this. Unfortunately, the scientific community at that time chucked him away from all reputable scientific boards. They announced him anti-scientific. They sentenced him to 2 years of prison, and they actually burned around like 6 tons of his book. So unfortunately, we lost some of his work, but because he was training lots of people, some books are preserved, some knowledge was preserved, and only later, when humanity finally developed MRI machines, when they could measure electrical stream on the body and signal and what's happening, suddenly it was like, oh, mistake. I've never heard that anybody apologized to Reich afterwards, that they did very wrong to him. But this is what he did. So he gave us this energy thing. And then from there, the question is, where exactly is the energy? So while the science was developing, we discovered that energy is stored in muscles. This is what he offered to us. Then we knew about fascia, this tissue around our muscles. Before that, it was like, oh, what's that thing? Not interested. We're going to chuck it away and look at the muscle. But until we finally discovered that actually it's something that keeps us basically upright, right? It's around all internal organs, around all muscles. So something is happening there. And now we know that chronic tension is stored in deep muscles and in fascia. Then we found that energy is doing something in all your system, in your nervous system, in your lymphatic system, in how your cells are working. So it appeared to be a very complex thing. And today, all trauma therapy science is basically based on that, on what Reich offered to us, and then on further research. And this is what we bring into psychotherapy.
How does this sort of differ from conventional therapies that most people know? Going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist through conventional ways. How does this differ then?
I think we should start with the word conventional, because conventional in which country?
Okay.
Conventional for which healthcare system? Because in Ukraine, it just is. We don't have licensing bodies in Ukraine. We have certifying bodies. You have a professional community who recognizes that you've learned this. Like you have your traditional education in the university. You become a psychologist or a social worker or medical. You acquire a medical profession, but then you have a qualifying body. And then you can study Gestalt or psychoanalysis or cognitive behavioral therapy or body psychotherapy. You can choose any. And then after a number of years, which is about 4 to 5 years on average, you are certified, you work under supervision, and then you practice. Usually everybody starts practicing maybe in like the second year of studying. You can do just less thing and then you learn more and you can offer more to people. And now conventional for South Africa is something different, because here you have certifications and you have licenses. So conventional for South Africa is something very different. My understanding is a majority of psychologists practice here counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, and psychoanalysis. I met some people who were saying that they're practicing Gestalt, but from conversations, I think they refer to it mostly as to a technique. But Gestalt is not a technique. Gestalt is a philosophy. It's the way how you think. It has some techniques inside, but it's just your worldview. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into, I guess, the more practical side now. We kind of understand the background a little bit. So how do you put this into practice? So how do you help your clients when they come to you and work with you, with the mental well-being?
I think I should start with explaining, like very, very simply, how body psychotherapy can be done. If to reduce it to very simple concepts, it can be hands-off and hands-on, because we touch some people, we don't touch some other people. Therefore, certain therapy you can do online, others you can't. You actually have to have access to physically to a body. Then you have therapies who involve less talking and more talking. And then something works better one-on-one, and others you can do in a group setting. So when I work with people online, I usually would use a conversation plus somatic experiencing. There is a guy, Peter Levine, who developed his approach called somatic experiencing. It's a brand name. This is not quite exactly the thing that I'm doing, but it's rooted in his work. Somatic experiencing is actually, it is what it sounds. I ask people what exactly they sense in their body. And so we talk a little bit, and then we start following the senses. We take a problem and we start following the senses. And then this real story starts unfolding, because people always have stories. And sometimes those stories are used to bypass certain experiences that the body stores in the body. Sorry, it's like a oil, but yeah. And then we start unwinding the sensations, and then real stories come up. Sometimes we can tell them in words, sometimes we cannot. It's just a sensation without the story. And then we just follow the sensations until the person finally feels that something shifted, something happened. It's really difficult to explain. It's almost like explaining the taste of a cake. It's sweet, but you can't really say how it feels because it's a very individual experience.
Right.
And then probably another thing to tell is when we do so, I usually ask people to stand, to sit, to move. We use cushions, we use blankets, and I can never predict how session will go because it's unpredictable, because here is the story, but then the body does something else. If someone, and then there are people who can't do body psychotherapy. They say they want to, but they actually, it's still too early for them. They are too scared, and scared not on a mental level. It's a subconscious thing. For instance, I have a client who always demands from me, like, let's do exercise, let's do some technique, let's use my body. And I say, okay, so you just sit, and can you please find any point in your apartment and look at it? And then she starts looking at it. And then I ask her slightly to open her eyes like this. And 3 seconds later, she starts talking to me. But that was the exercise, and she can't stay there. So for her, we have to do lots of conversations to make her feel comfortable actually sit for maybe 10 seconds with eyes open like that. Because this is one of the basic exercises that we can do. Then another type with hands-on therapy, when people come to me, they actually sit in a chair and we do a normal conversation, but then I lay people down on the floor and we'll start with some breathing exercises. Let's say I do some massaging techniques. Some of them are pleasant, some of them may be a little bit painful. That's not the goal to create pain, but because we have certain muscular tension in the body, something that doesn't even look painful can be painful for that person. And then some emotion come from there. And then we finish up work with more conversation, because everything that came up from the body, every emotion that showed up must be processed. Because if they are not, then they go back to where they were, to the body, and nothing changes. And you can see the effect on actually posture changes, or if a person was collapsing, now suddenly they can sit upright. You can see, you can hear sometimes that the voice is changing, becomes higher or deeper. Depends on what was disturbing the voice before.
Right. Wow, that sounds very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. And I'm sure you, you mentioned that you're also a trauma therapist. So I think that may come up in your sessions. In your opinion, why are so many people today, these days, struggling with mental illnesses, and specifically maybe some trauma experiences or trauma conditions?
To be honest, I don't think we have more people. We just started talking about it more. Okay. Because even if you will look at what Freud was describing in his books, it was like violence was present in every second home, and it was normalized. So now we just talk about it. Plus, media creates the buzz. Because if you go to social media, especially TikTok, everyone has trauma. Trauma, 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 trauma. Not every difficulty, even if you cry, even if you become hysterical, even if you feel like throwing plates into the wall, not trauma.
Okay.
Trauma is a very specific thing. Trauma is a response in your body to something that has happened to you. And in that regard, we can talk about shock trauma and chronic trauma. Shock trauma, when dealt very early after things happened, is relatively easy to work with because it's still fresh. Example, someone was in a car accident, minor car accident, nothing terrifying happened. And then you fix your car, everything is fine. 6 months later, the person is driving and like, and now the anxiety kicks in, or panic attacks kicks in. So now we talk about trauma that was caused by shock, because it doesn't matter how terrifying that experience was to someone who's looking at it. It's something in the body happened. Another thing that people can pick up often is if when something was happening, as if they looked at it from a side, as if they were looking at themselves and they were not present in their bodies. Then we also talk about trauma. When we talk about chronic trauma, then very often people have no memories of what happened. It's like, I don't remember, nothing scary ever happened to me. It's because this how trauma changes how your brain works, and it blocks out certain segments of your brain so that you don't remember something that was very painful, that is actually helping us. But then at some point in your life, it can trigger something can happen and trigger you. And now your life becomes uncomfortable. Lots of women are triggered by relationship, or when they give birth. Suddenly the whole birth process could be traumatic. But also now you have this little person in your house and you look at this and certain memories start coming up. So, or something else happens, but usually it's a significant discomfort. And that is traumatic. And then when such things happen, I prefer not to talk about experiences that happened a lot. A little bit, maybe like a couple of sentences here and there. With difficulties, we can talk about them, nothing will happen. With traumatic experience, you don't want a person to repeat what happened. Because what happens, our brain doesn't like blanks. If we don't remember something, the brain starts creating memory. And sometimes it's a false memory. And sometimes your brain tells you way scarier story than it actually happened. So you don't want to kind of dig into this story. What we want to do was say, okay, a certain energy got stuck. Something happened. A person was maybe frightened, or I don't know, was blocking out. So I'm looking for the way to release that energy in a very safe way. If someone is super traumatic, those people usually cannot tolerate high level of energy. They go into and collapse or panic attack. So you can't do anything super energetic. Then we use approach which is called titration, which is the term from chemistry. When you add little by little, drop by drop, we look at sensations, and the person says, "Oh, I feel tension in my legs," and we stop. And we stop till tension in the legs will stop being scary. We go to the legs again. Okay, tension is fine. Now we can proceed. And that's how we work to release the tension, bypassing the whole story. And then the story at the very end may come up, or sometimes we don't have memories, especially if someone is dealing with birth trauma, and I mean child, not the mother. Like we say, yeah, birth was fine. We have a baby, nothing ever happened. But the baby in process of delivery got stuck, maybe for 2 seconds. But it was enough for this little child to get terrified. And I cannot breathe. And then It doesn't bother you. You don't even know it happened until one day you're probably swimming in your pool and someone puts you under the water. And our brain says, we know this. That's a scary run. And then we start saving ourselves. And now it's a trauma. It wasn't trauma before. It was unpleasant experience. But now something happened and now it became trauma.
Right.
So, and we need to work with that to
Really.
glue this together and leave it in the past as unpleasant experience.
Right. It sounds so crucial because we all tend to keep our emotions in the body, like you say, and now bringing to light that we need to release that energy that's stored and in the correct way, in a safe way. So working with someone, I think, is so crucial. Working with someone like you, to help to release that tension. Like you say, someone might not be ready to talk about it. So this is really interesting, where you can release it through the body without even talking about it.
I actually wanted to share my personal experience with you, and because your health nutrition coach might be interesting. We often consider stress incorrectly. We only look at things that happen, something bad happened, but not necessarily bad things happen to us. For instance, when I moved to South Africa from Ukraine, changing climate, food, water, length of the day, all of this is causing stress on the body. And I couldn't sleep, I felt depleted, and then I was measuring my vitamin D levels, and it was extremely low. And then I had to use extremely high dosage of vitamin D. I'm not even going to say how much, because everyone will be like, no, she's going to die. And this is what doctors were telling me: you will die if you will be using that much. But I found the other doctor who said, nah, we can work with this if you will be using the dieting, a special type of dieting, and if you will be using other supplements. And the amount of supplements I took a day was probably that much. And my level of vitamin D, with all of this support, at some point climbed to 50 units per this blood unit. And it was a struggle. Like the moment I stopped taking supplement, it drops. Now I'm not taking anything, and I did my blood test 2 weeks ago, I think. I don't do anything, and it's 78.
Oh, wow.
It's 78, and all my other, like iron and folic acid and whatever else, is perfect. But for that period of time, I needed those supplements. I needed specific diet to support myself, because the level of stress was insane. Coming to the other side of the planet is stressful. So, of course, it caused lots of disturbances physiologically and psychologically. And I should say that I have my personal therapy for years now. It's like in Ukraine, when we practice, we always have our supervisor and our therapy. This is like a security measure for you. So this is what I'm doing every week. And it's not like I was without support completely, but it still was stressful. And I still had to do my supplements, and I did work on my body all the time.
So important.
Till I got used to being here. I can say that biologically, my body adjusted probably in about 3 years' time. It took that long. It wasn't that long.
Yes, and here we think it's just so easy to just up and go and change and move different places, but you have to be able to support your body and actually be aware of those changes and the best way to support it. So thanks for sharing. That's super important. So if someone was thinking of working with you how can they get in touch with you and connect with you?
I think the easiest way is to go to my Instagram page, which is simple. The name is simple. It's called bodypsychology.za. Instead of remembering my name, so it should be fairly easy. There's also a website, alshulga.com. But if you go to Instagram page, it's easy. Just drop me a message or send me a WhatsApp message, and I will always reply. Also, I don't know if other professionals watching you, I just wanted to say that we hope to bring one of the trainers hopefully end of this year. So if someone is interested in body psychology and someone wants to try and learn it, then maybe there will be such a possibility. So I'm not working for that person. I do not know the details, but I'm so passionate. And I think that people should have all the means to make themselves feel better. Because throughout my life, I can collect so many stories where official medicine was telling me you're done. And then I wasn't done. And then I was finding something else to keep me going. And the truth is that with working with the body, sometimes things shift much faster. Much faster.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. So what do you do, to keep on top of things and for your own physical and mental well-being? What do you do for your self-care? Yeah, I'm just curious so you can share with the audience.
Yeah, I do all ABCs. I'm following what I'm eating. I am staying away from gluten and lactose, because for me, these are the worst things that can cause inflammation. Then basically, I'm trying to stick to paleo. I used to be much stricter than I am now, but gluten and lactose is out of my diet. Then every morning I'm trying to do some exercises. I usually do some somatic practices. Sometimes I can do yoga, but mostly it's somatic exercises so that I could feel my body. I could release some tension. That I usually wake up feeling quite stiff in my back, so I try to not stretch, but actually, release how I feel myself. So that's every day. And then once a week, I have my therapy session. It stays there with me. And every 2 weeks, I have meeting with my supervisor. I've seen that South Africans do supervision only at the beginning of their practice, but in the way I am trained, it's a continuous, ongoing thing that should be done. I skipped this year group therapy, the group supervision, but it's just I'm taking a little bit of a break with that. But otherwise, it's also group supervision. So this is my must thing. And also I do currently training in Pilates. I'm a big yoga fan. But then I thought I wanted to learn something else, and I'm doing Pilates. And I think it's wonderful for understanding your body, having better control over the muscles. Because I think you can take anything to the extreme, right? There are Pilates lessons that looks like as if they're trying to train Olympic champions. I'm not doing that crazy stuff, but I work on really understanding my body. And I think my trainer, if she's watching it, she's great.
Awesome. So just before we end off, what if someone was listening and they really interested in, what tips can you give to someone to sort of begin right away that they can implement for their mental well-being and just to take care of their bodies?
The number one recommendation is ridiculously simple. everyone knows about it and no one does it, is breathing.
Absolutely. I agree with you
Breathing.
100%.
It is not even a specific technique. Of course, there are wonderful techniques that people can use. There are so many apps that people can use. But sometimes all you need to do is just sit down for 5 minutes, close your eyes or stare at the flowers. It doesn't really matter. And just breathe and notice how air comes into your nose, how it travels down, and how it leaves your body. 5 minutes of that every day will make a huge change. Because when we work in therapy, I always look how people
Breathe. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. And the second thing, whatever body sport, walking, stretching, shaking, whatever works for you. Do anything for your body, because our bodies must move. We're all different in energy levels. Some people need to go to the gym, other people need just to go for a walk. Choose whatever works for you, but just move. And third one, eating. Eating we cannot bypass. What we put into our mouth is important. And I know that sometimes after years of following what exactly you're eating, it can become very tiring. But it's still very important. Maybe if people are relatively healthy and they say, whatever I can eat, God bless them, I'm happy for them. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. I do have to pay attention what I'm eating, because when you start losing your health, nothing else really matters, because then you become focused. And if someone will tell you that you need half a cup of, I don't know, fish oil for breakfast, you will drink. So before you go into crisis, it's good to do something for yourself. And the fourth, I think, advice would be, when you do all those things, go to a professional. Because for a while, I thought that I'm eating very healthy, until I accidentally saw one of the TED videos, TEDx even, and there was this doctor talking about supplements and elements and micro elements, and I was like, wow. And then I actually looked at what I was eating, and then I realized that I'm eating, but my cells remain hungry. Yes, I don't eat in McDonald's, but in that salad that I ate, there are no nutrients. It's empty. No wonder I don't feel satisfied with food. I'm always hungry, and it doesn't taste well.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And as a health coach, all those things that you mentioned, we do cover I cover with my clients. So at least I know that part is covered, but working with a professional is so, so important. And I think what you do is so crucial. Working with the body therapy, body psychology, so many different things you can do to release that tension, to work through levels of tension, and just to find your body as a whole at the other end, where you as the person feel more whole and feel well and healthy at the other end. So thank you so much for your time, Liudmyla. This was very, very interesting. And for those of
I
you
was happy to talk about body psychology. I'm very passionate about it, and I want everybody to know about it.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to post your details along with this video, so anyone who wants to get in touch with you can. And anyone who's watching this video, if you did find this helpful and useful, please like and share with your friends and family. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, Liudmyla, for your time. I appreciate it. And thanks for listening, and bye for now.
Bye for now. Bye.